the message that you're bringing people today is being your own educational advocate, which is quite an uncommon topic to begin with. So tell me a little bit about how you define being your own educational advocate, and then we'll get into your specific journey, where you're coming from and how you went about it for yourself.
Well, I think that being your own educational advocate kind of means, advocating for yourself, doing your own research by yourself, and not really relying too much on the opinions of everyone, but to more so taking pieces of opinions and then forming your own, I guess, decision or conclusion from it. And I think that going to Rutgers specifically, it's a very big school. As much as they try to send emails out to go to counseling or send emails out to go meet your guidance counselors, it's on you to do it. And so I feel like it was a learning curve for sure. And I definitely got a lot of interesting reactions when I was like, I want to do that. I want to combine, public health with political science. I've had someone who told me that was flat out a bad idea and that I probably wouldn't get hired. And they don't know exactly what I would do with it. It was difficult because no one had ever really thought of it. It's not the common pathway that they tell you to take.
You brought up some points that I want to highlight. Number one is that Rutgers, which is our university, is enormous. I think the last count was 71,000 students at our university. And it's easy for people to get lost in something that big. And that's been the case from the very beginning. And that also brings in a lot of options, tons of facilities, tons of majors. There's so much that comes with the scale of such a large university. But regardless, whether you're in a big school or a small school, we do need to advocate for ourselves. And we may come upon people in positions of authority in our lives who are going to totally disagree with what we're sharing. I mean, in my own life, when I was 18, I wanted to have a creative career. And I went to my college counselor, and that person discouraged me from studying photography and video because at the time, it wasn't what it is today. And he told me that I would never make enough money, that I needed to pick something different. But I let him discourage me. And the key word here that I need to emphasize is that I let him discourage me. He didn't discourage me. I let that happen. I was young, impressionable, clueless, and I thought he knew better than me. And so I walked out of there completely deflated. In your case, you saw a connection between political science and public health. Your counselor wasn't seeing it, but you persisted. You're like, no, this is what I want. And you found a way to make it make sense. So share with us a little bit about what is the connection for you in those two fields, and how are you making it happen now that you've also graduated? Where do these worlds collide for you?
So I was very passionate about science and the medical field for a very long time. In high school throughout, I thought I was going to be a doctor. So I was very passionate. I still find it very interesting. But there are parts of me that also love law. I find law very interesting. So I didn't want to just be funneled into one pathway and one decision. I was like, I'm going to try to find a way to merge them. So I think that there is a lot of overlap naturally in public health and law. And I don't really know why they don't encourage that more and try to branch into that at Rutgers, because there were courses I did take as a public health major that really went into the law of things. I mean, there was a specific course I took that was public health law, I think it was called. And there's definitely overlap, like health law, there's pharmacy law. And I feel like having a public health background is going to help me, hopefully. But after school, when I graduated, I ended up getting a job with a law firm. So I kind of took my political science and went with that because that was the opportunity that presented itself. But hopefully now that I just left, I'm going to go to law school. I'm hoping to end up somewhere like in health law. So we will see.
There is a strong connection between the law and health. And for the first thing that pops into mind, of course, is malpractice and lawsuits and that kind of law, but also even something as interesting as telemedicine now. And there are new laws being written about those kinds of things right now. So this is an interesting time to be connected to both of those worlds. So you never know how things are going to play out in your life, but I just want to applaud your efforts for not allowing somebody that disagreed with you to discourage you and pursuing the things that felt right for you, because it was outside of the mold. What are some practical things that you would suggest to students who are in a similar situation?
I think that first, take a deep breath and be ready to not find what you're looking for very easily. I wasn't able to just plug it in Google, public health and political science, because Google would either give me all public health results or all political science results. So what I did was I used LinkedIn kind of like as a research database, first in the beginning stages, where I would just be plugging in the majors, plugging in certain companies. I would look at maybe counsel that was working at a big pharma company and be like, okay, let me look at their path and see how they got here. And then I was able to connect, even through interviewing for jobs, I was able to just ask questions. Someone that was working at Disney, was counsel at Disney, actually told me that she worked at Merck most of her life, and kind of just switched into Disney. But she was like, she was a public health major and she ended up as counsel at Merck. So that was the first kind of sign that I was like, okay, what I'm thinking of doing is not that outrageous. But I think it definitely takes time, research, and patience for sure.
So a step one would be, like you said, breathe, take a deep breath, know that this is probably not going to be a smooth ride, but it'll probably be worth the ride. Second, start researching, looking things up, even if they don't seem to connect right away. Find information, and then using your own intelligence and your own curiosity and your own creativity, starting to figure out how to connect those. And then three, seek out the counsel of people who are in positions that are of interest to you. What about mindset? When things get rough, when you're not figuring it out, when things aren't making sense, what about how we need to think?
Well, I think that we could definitely connect this to different topics we learned in your class specifically, but it's helpful to take breaks. There were times where I would be very intensive with my research every single night for weeks on end, and then I would be kind of exhausted and frustrated. And you just take a break. You stop thinking about it. Just kind of focus on your day-to-day tasks and then go back to it. Like, I would take a break and meet up with my friends, and that would pull me out of my searching and my deep rabbit hole of the internet at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I think that you need to take a break. It'll be there tomorrow, you know?
I agree with you. And taking those kind of mental breaks and engaging in activities that are fun and social, things that you enjoy, actually allow creativity to flow a lot better, which will allow for you to make connections and have new ideas that you wouldn't have been able to if you just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. That's 100% what I believe. Michelle, if you had to wrap up this message in one sentence for everybody listening, what is your message in one sentence for our audience?
Hmm. I would say that it's very, again, it's very important to be your own advocate in education, in your life, in anything, and find something and settle on something that you are in the end happy with. Because in the end of the day, it is going to be your life, your career, not theirs.
And I want to highlight with the lots of beautiful colors that you're saying being your own advocate in education, but also in life, because this is going to be true if you're facing a tough medical decision, if you're facing a tough relationship decision, if you've got an amazing opportunity. When you're your own advocate, you are taking really great care of you. Michelle, you were a student in my leadership class. It's a class where we talked about public speaking was one of the subjects, but we also talked about things like emotional intelligence and conflict resolution, dealing with our inner critic, facing our fears, understanding ourselves and others. Is there something that you're still working on, a skill that you're still developing from that class, or that you want to talk about a little bit today?
I'm still, I guess, working on just being able to immediately have confidence, whether it's in an interview, whether it's, you're going to be facing something that is scary, it's hard. It's not something that is coming easily yet, but I think that it will eventually. And I definitely have all of the foundational blocks. But that's something that will take practice. It'll take going on a lot of interviews to be able to walk in and feel like I nailed it every time. I think that was something that we practice a lot in class. So I think that that's something I'm still working on. And I think it's okay to be still working on it, but I hope that it will come a lot more naturally soon.
I I have to say, I am a little bit surprised that you're saying you're working on the confidence still, because I feel that you come across as a confident communicator, even from when I first met you in class. But I know every single one of us, we have our own things that we're dealing with. And I just want to encourage you that if I was going to speak about you, confident would be one of the words that I would add as an adjective.
Thank you. That's good to hear. But as you said, we all get into our own heads, kind of. So I always sometimes will walk out and feel like, oh, I don't know if I said the right things. I don't know. And it takes me a little bit to warm up. Whereas I wish I could be the person who is like just on as soon as I walk in, just on. So
Mm.
hopefully it'll come to me. And I guess I could say another something that you told us, that when you arrive to an interview, you're on as soon as you're in the parking lot. It's not when you're sitting down with the person. It's whether it's walking up to the building. Let's say in New York City, you're walking to the building. You don't know who could be walking next to you. You should be on at all times. Funny enough, I was interviewing at a law firm in the city, and there was a Starbucks on the ground level, and I was like, I'm gonna sit there, kind of just go over my interview, get some coffee. And funny enough, the person that was sitting next to me at 10:30 packed their stuff up and went upstairs and was the person that I interviewed with. And I was like, imagine I, had been on the phone or, kind of doing unprofessional things at the Starbucks. Like, he was right next to me and I had no idea. So that is something that I always remember, that you are on, your interview is on, in the car, in the elevator, everywhere.
Absolutely. So many times we don't know when these opportunities to make an impression are going to happen. So yeah, that is a really good tip, and I'm glad that that stuck with you. I want to ask, if you could go back in time for 15 seconds to talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say? Just remember, you only have 15 seconds. What do you say to yourself at 18?
I would go back to when I was scheduling and declaring my major and picking out my classes as a freshman. I would go back and tell myself, take as many courses as you want in all different fields and see what you're connected to. And don't do what your people are expecting you to do, which was the medical field, because that would have saved me about 2 years, I think, of heartache, of stress, and would have allowed me to find my path sooner, I think.
Wow, I know. If only we would know these things in retrospect, but I would not encourage students to be flip-floppy or superficial in their commitments, but I do want to communicate to all students listening is that it's okay if you don't have it all figured out, but can you figure out the next right step? And when you're 18, it feels like this pressure. I need to know what I'm going to do until I retire in my 60s, or maybe now 70s. But that's not true. It's not like we have to have it all figured out right away. And self-care is something that's very important to me. We talked about it in terms of career paths and mindsets, and how it can allow us to be more creative, to come up with ideas, to come up with solutions. What's the most recent thing that you did for yourself?
I'm currently in that part right now. I decided to leave my job at the end of July and give myself a much needed break before I start law school. And so in that break, I'm, taking time to read a book that I've been wanting to read, but it was too busy with work and I couldn't. I am going to the beach and kind of just enjoying my time alone, even just to be in my own mind and get ready and get hyped up for law school. But I think it's important to take breaks. I was the kind of person working where I would just push through it. I worked 60-hour weeks. I need to learn to tell myself to slow down, which I don't. I'm like, I'm going to just get it done. I'll feel better when I get it done. But then it's always something else. So a much needed break and payment to myself, I think.
Right, especially as you're about to go into a very hyper focused time in your life where you're going to need to invest time, energy. Really, all of you is going to be committed. So I wish you the best, not only success, but also great experiences, and that you find people that you will connect with for the rest of your life. Remember before when I asked you to share what's your message in a sentence?
Yes.
Let's say you had to put it on a t-shirt. So you only have so much room. You only have a few words. What would your t-shirt message say?
Hmm. Well, it would be something like only you can be your own advocate.
Hmm. So maybe the t-shirt could say self-advocacy.
Self-advocacy.
This is such an exciting time in your life. So I want to wish you great things, great experiences, fantastic relationships, lots of time to explore, to learn, and to grow for yourself. And then that also helps to inspire other people, everybody listening today who might need to hear that nudge, that encouragement.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I'm very excited to continue my education so that I can continue helping out. I want to come back and help out. I want to offer internships. I want to offer advice. So I'm excited to continue so that I can become that resource for someone.
So I love hearing that you're already, even at this early stage in your career, already thinking about how you can give back and encourage and work with students in the future. So thank you so much, Michelle.